this is going to be a very kind of subtle, toned down version of Ask the Knight, so we shall proceed with the first question. And it's from the Prez. What are your thoughts on Spaceballs? From what I remember of it, I saw bits and pieces of it in the late 80s, early 90s. It had a decent ensemble cast with the likes of John Candy in there, and he's probably one of the greatest comedy actors to have ever graced the silver screen, and he's one of those guys that you can put him into a comedy orientated family picture and it just works. Planes, Trains and Automobiles and Uncle Buck being prime examples, and of course the brief little stint that he had in the first Home Alone movie. I can't believe that movie's 25 years old next month. Feel old. But again, off on a tangent, from what I remember of the movie, it's one of those movies that it knows the material that it's parodying, where it's being respectful, but at the same time it knows when to poke a little fun at it, and I just remember it being very enjoyable. Yeah. Question 2 from the respectable and distinguished Coup92. How are you, good sir? His question: do you think that the movie Man of Steel gets a lot of flack from people, and do you also feel that a lot of people are giving up on the DC cinematic universe this soon after, just after this one? Well, it's very easy for people to criticize some of the things that happened in Man of Steel, like with the whole destruction aspect between Superman and Zod in the battle in Metropolis, yet people don't talk about the fact that a very similar thing happened in the first Avengers scene with the battle against the Chitauri Skrulls, if you're a Marvel purist. And then into the second movie when it's Hulk versus Iron Man in the Hulkbuster armor in Cape Town, if I'm not mistaken. People will correct me, I know. And they don't talk about the destruction element that happened on there, where Hulk tore through streets, wrecked cars, wrecked buildings. So I find it's a little bit hypocritical that people will narc on Man of Steel for one thing, but not give the two Avenger movies the same criticism that they gave Man of Steel. Man of Steel, for me, it broke away from a lot of the aspects that the Christopher Reeve Superman movie series was known for, where the guy pretty much played by as a big, he's a big blue Boy Scout, thank you, eventually. And people didn't like the fact that he's just a bit of a goody two shoes, a bit prissy. And in this one, he does kind of follow a set base of rules, but you feel like Clark is a little bit more relatable in this setup, in that you look at it from the perspective of an outsider who has never really fit in, and as so he feels like he's been mistreated in some ways, especially when you look at the flashback scenes with the segment in the river where the school bus went over the bridge, and people just getting and even he was getting a glimpse of what he was capable of, and still not knowing what he was. And I think that's what people forget, is even though it's a it's a superhero story, it's a very human story with aspects that people could relate to. When you don't know who or what you are, it makes you see the world a little bit differently. But as for people that are giving up on the DC cinematic universe this soon after one, I think some people need to realise is that you have to be patient. With the Marvel movies, there's basically at least one movie out every year, whereas it used to be you'd only see one every so often, excuse me. But I think it just all comes down to patience. I know this is getting long-winded, and I do apologise for, and thank people for staying with me on this particular one. But it all comes down to patience, and I think, if you wait for something long enough, you will be rewarded. And for the people that just want to, cut their losses and not wait for a decent finished DC movie, well, that's your loss. End of. Yeah, very long-winded. Thank you for sticking. And the third question, and this is a question that has been thrown around a lot in the last 5 years in particular. From Back to the Future's 25th anniversary to the 30th, everybody has asked, should there be a fourth movie? Now, I'm completely with the fans and Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale. It doesn't need a reboot, a remake, because when something is already perfect, and this is just my subjective opinion, Back to the Future is one of those movies that they don't make movies from the writing, the casting, the scoring, and the actual cinematography. That movies like that are not done today, and it's a crying shame. But as for part 4, if they were ever to say, as Doc Brown says, what the hell? It's like, I figured, what the hell? If they were ever to go back and do a fourth future movie, I wouldn't be against the idea. I would actually like to, them say, okay, at least tell me the base of what you were looking to do, who you would look to cast. I mean, first of all, it has to be Bob Zemeckis at the helm directing, and it has to be Bob Gale co-writing with it, because that's their baby. That's the one that put them on the map. I would like to see, like I say, story, the premise, how they would go from where they did in part 3. Because keep in mind, it's been 25 years since part 3, and a lot has changed. And also, you'd have to give the explanation of, how would he have fixed the DeLorean up? Would it be you could say do something along the lines of what Biff did in the Back to the Future, right? But they did that with part 2 with him altering timelines. If they were going to do something similar to what they've done to the Back to the Future game, where Marty is time hopping between 86 and 31, but actually make that a live action thing, I would be open to that idea, just to see how they would pull it off. Back to the Future is one of those movie series that there are some movie series over time they don't age so well, whereas this movie series, it is basically gotten stronger and more enjoyable with the passage of time. And aside from maybe a small handful of visual effects, Back to the Future was done practically, hardly, there was no CG. There were blue screen effects, sure, but a lot of it was just done with good old school, old-fashioned practical effects that, and it's easier for actors to act with that because what they're seeing in front of them is actually there. they can actually react to that. Whereas with CG, you've got to, train your eye to get your eye line. Particularly in Lost World Jurassic Park, where Jeff Goldblum would actually ask the visual effects guys, where does he need to get his eye line? Does his eye line right in regards to where he wants to be able to see where the dinosaur is? And I think in terms of casting, when you look at the pairing of Chris Lloyd and Michael J. Fox as Doc Brown and Marty McFly, it's one of the best on-screen duos that, in the history of cinema that we've ever seen. And Michael is the best Marty McFly, although AJ Locascio does a very good impersonation in the Back to the Future game. Chris is just so eccentric and over the top as Doc Brown. You just love the guy. He's got this very father figure type of aura around him, particularly how he is with Marty. He's almost like a mentor, father figure, an uncle. It's hard to dislike anything about this franchise. But yeah, long-winded. Long story short, I'd be open to the idea, but I would need to see something whereby it complements the 3 movies that have gone beforehand, but at the same time tries to be fresh and keep the novelty of what has gone before. Because it's such a beloved franchise. Why do anything to tarnish it? Yeah. Those have been your 3 questions for this week. You know the usual stick by now. If you're watching this on dynamicnight.com, YT, or even Facebook, leave a question in the comment section below, or tweet me a question to my Twitter link in the outro. But until then, next time, guys, ask again.